What's up, guys? I'm Nick.
And I'm Zach.
And today we're going to be reviewing the new A24 horror film, Men. So what'd you think, Zach?
I thought Men was great. I thought that it was... tried to go in with no expectations at all.
Which is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's probably the best way to do it, probably with any movie, just to go in no expectations, so that way you're not disappointed.
Don't even watch the trailer. Don't even get any kind of opinion of it at all. Just buy a random movie ticket and go.
Yeah, exactly. And this definitely did not disappoint. I think this continues Alex Garland's streak of making really incredible and thought-provoking and maybe even, audience-splitting films.
It's weirdly fits within his sci-fi wheelhouse over the past few of his bigger movies, and it feels like something that, again, only probably he could have done.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And I thought it was really cool going from kind of a bigger movie like Annihilation to kind of a smaller, contained story with really only two actors.
Yeah, I don't think Natalie Portman would have been in this.
No. And I thought this was really great, and I thought this was something that, only A24 definitely thought to distribute.
Definitely. And I think that's like kind of an important thing too, is that this is like a horror movie. It's of course not a conventional horror movie, as most A24 films aren't very conventional, but it's also very much feels like a sci-fi movie. And again, it has that style that he's kind of known for, where everything kind of just goes crazy at the end.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How'd you like how it looked, Zach?
I thought it looked great. I thought there's kind of an interesting use of color and almost foreshadowing in the color as well, especially at the end. I guess spoilers.
Yeah, we should probably put a spoiler alert now before we say anything else about it.
Spoilers for the rest of the movie.
If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. Again, just go buy a movie ticket. It's probably only playing at a very small theater nearby.
Yeah.
I think it was in bigger theaters at one point, but it's been a little while now. You can also stream it on like Vudu right now, I think. So if you want to, find a way to watch it. If you're a big fan, if you don't mind paying for it, it's definitely worth the watch. But spoiler review now for the rest of the video.
So. Just the way the house inside, the red paint.
Yeah.
I felt like after watching all the rebirths of all the different men, just them coming out with like the placenta and the blood and everything, it just almost like
painting the floors red
exactly,
too. Yeah,
exactly, and just with Spring and the connections to the Green Man and everything else, I just felt like the way it was shot too, just it was very just very unique and different.
I thought it was really cool. They used like very vintage lenses on it. It seemed like a lot, and it had like insanely shallow depth of field. So like the stuff at like the church when she's talking to the man, when she's talking to the vicar at the church. I mean, the whole background is like has this swirly vintage look, but then also the foreground where she's standing in was also blurred out of frame. So you really could only focus on the one subject they were looking at in a lot of these scenes, and I think that was just such a cool use of like the gear they had and kind of the look they were going for.
Yeah, exactly. And just the way, too, just the kind of the differences between just kind of staying on sticks versus using handheld and when to use, when to move the camera, when to use tracking shots. It felt all just very calculated, and it was all just shot with so much purpose, just to continue to bring out the emotions and what he's trying to tell you and what to make you feel.
Yeah.
The direction.
Yeah, definitely. What'd you think of those scenes with her husband where it was like all orange and there was that kind of sunburst coming through the glass? What would you think about that stuff?
I thought that was great. I thought it was like just such a unique way to do a flashback.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would have just maybe done black or white's kind of cliche.
I was gonna say like a lot of people do black and white,
or just not
or that
change
weird,
really the color at all.
That
or
weird
maybe do
haze blue
do like
that
a
they
weird
do.
haze blue or something.
But
I thought this was
the orange was really cool. I think it was cool that it also kind of complemented all the green that we see in the present.
Yeah.
And the orange, it's kind of like a complete contrast when you go to it. I mean, I thought a lot of that stuff was really cool. What'd you think of the horror elements once it started kind of getting into things?
I thought the horror elements were fantastic. I think it was such a surprise because you weren't kind of, based on the trailer, it kind of hinted something was gonna happen.
Yeah.
You're quite sure what
we
it was.
We knew it wasn't gonna
like,
be a normal movie.
But never in like a million years would you think that it would be like the Green Man giving birth to like 6 different men.
Yeah, I think definitely the ending kind of, I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, but it was a nice twist in with the story that you aren't really expecting from the setup. One of the things that I really loved is it felt, almost like a Black Mirror episode or that kind of modern sci-fi where you're really just kind of falling down the rabbit hole with this character, and the things that she perceives and the things that you perceive feel one and the same. And so when things start to seem off to her, you get this like sense of impending doom throughout like the whole film, especially when you start to realize that one actor is playing all of the parts, all of the men in the movie. And once you start to kind of realize, like, and you almost don't feel it at first, but then things start to feel off, things start to go sideways, and then from there on, I mean, I've been thinking about that backyard sequence like since I saw it, where the lights flick on and flick off, and it's so simple, but it's done so effectively, especially when the caretaker of the house comes in and it happens again to him, and you start to realize that, oh shit, he was a part of this the whole time too. So it really makes you retrace your steps and look at the whole movie differently, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it just feels kind of like she's going to almost like a nightmare place. Like it almost feels like it evokes the emotion of like maybe none of this was real at all.
Yeah.
Like you're almost kind of inside her consciousness, and this is her kind of working through
her husband's death.
Kind of where the imagery of the Green Man kind of comes in. I'm not obviously some expert on the Green Man, but
we're gonna pause the video, put Zach Hakeley, expert on Green Man, up in titles here. Do that, Zach, in the editing room.
But I know in the pagan religion, Green Man, he represents spring and he represents rebirth, which I think it's probably fair to say this is around the time when the movie takes place, probably like spring, early
definitely.
Summer.
There's definitely a lot of woodland imagery.
Exactly.
Where everything's very green and fresh at the time.
Yeah,
so.
And there's like even in the beginning where she's eating the fresh fruit.
Yeah, exactly. When do apples grow? Is it spring? Apple pickers, apple orchard owners, comment down below. When do you harvest your apples? If it's spring, look at that. It all matches up. Good job, guys.
Yes. And so obviously, with the Green Man representing rebirth,
I'm pretty sure it's fall. By the way,
I think it is fall.
It's definitely fall when apples like.
With him representing rebirth and this character being in a transitional period, it kind of makes sense if you want to look at it that way, because otherwise I don't know what else the Green Man could represent in this movie at all.
I think it's interesting that you found a very pagan interpretation of it, because I think there's a lot of also Catholic imagery that's used throughout the entire movie. I mean, he references her as, the snake, which is like Eve in the Garden of Eden. And even just biting the apple and taking the forbidden fruit, and he has that little joke in the beginning. And then even when her husband jumps out and kills himself, he gets impaled through his hand on the fence, which I thought was like almost some Jesus imagery from him being crucified on the cross, which is so interesting because, again, like, Catholicism does come, a lot of rituals in Catholicism come from from paganism, and a lot of things that pagans celebrated, but I do think it's really cool that all that stuff is wrapped up, and there could be 1, 2, 3, 4, a million different interpretations of what it all means.
There's like so many ways to interpret not only just the Green Man and the pagan imagery and the Catholicism in terms of religious aspects, but also just kind of societal messaging that it wants to say too. Does the main character see all men as the same? Is this because of how her husband treated her, or do these other men in the movie kind of represent? Obviously, we don't know what this character, what her life was like before we meet her.
Yeah.
But could all of these other figures the other figures of the men that we see in the movie, could they represent other interactions that she's had with important men in her life previously?
Yeah, definitely.
Could she have been a devout Catholic, and the priest treated her badly? Did she have a bad experience with a police officer or with somebody's son?
Yeah.
Or going to a bar and being harassed?
I think what's cool too is once you start to realize that these men are kind of just its own entity, that kind of it becomes this almost sci-fi horror creature, if you look at it that way. I think it's like, as soon as you find that out, it's just my mind went to, okay, he is misogyny. Like, that's what this monster is. It's if you want to look at it purely from a symbolic standpoint, she is society and he is misogyny, and it's this kind of conflict between like trying to be a woman in this world where basically all the interactions she has with these men basically are, something that anyone could experience in any day life. And I'm sure a lot of women would resonate with kind of what she goes through. This is gaslighting the movie. This is gaslighting. I know a lot of people like to throw that term around these days, but this is gaslighting the movie. So
And
I'm sorry. But,
no, I was gonna say, to further your point, I think what really drives all that home is the performance from the actor who plays all the men. He doesn't play them as stereotypes or like caricatures. He just plays them as normal people.
Yeah, exactly, which makes it almost even scarier. And then, of course, even just having her play someone who pushes back against these people. This isn't someone who, he says, "Oh, there's nothing wrong," and she's like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong." She very much throughout the entire movie is like, there's something isn't right, and I have to trust myself to know that something isn't right here.
Yeah, and she kind of, I don't want to say she almost accepts it, but by the time, I think by the second or third birth, she just kind of just goes back into the house.
She's so done with it. And I think that's cool that it turns this monster, it's almost like the It thing where it's like, if I don't believe in you, you're not scary
anymore.
If I don't believe in you, you can't hurt me anymore. So
exactly. She just kind of goes back into the house, and I think after she cuts that great scene where he's got his hand in
oh my god
the mail hole in the door, and the knife just goes through the arm and through the hand.
Oh my god, I was just gonna bring up, I think that's so cool because again, there's not a lot of big budget scares going on here, but it's so effective when he comes back and his hand's split, and he puts it on her shoulder, and she's in between his hand split, and she did that, and it's just such an effective thing. And then even more so, you see that when he keeps changing shapes, the hand is still hers. So it just like drives home again that this is just one entity, it's one figure doing all of this stuff to her. And again, even more so when you find out that Jeffrey, the caretaker, is his name Jeffrey. Yep. When she hits him with the car, and then you see his hand is split open, you just know that the whole thing has been a setup from the start, which I think is just so cool.
She's just been in this nightmare world from the beginning.
Yeah.
Since she tried to go on vacation.
So yeah, just talking about, again, really simple, effective, like, horror scenario. She goes down to that tunnel, and I think that's such an effective sequence, especially because you feel like she's entirely alone when she's singing with herself, and she's really letting go, and you're seeing her kind of bring forth a piece of her character that we haven't seen yet. Yeah. And then there's just that one shot where it's just the edge of the tunnel, and whoever or whatever it is stands up, and it just holds, and it's, I don't know, it gave me chills when it happened. It's so simple, but yeah, so
that kind of ties into this other thing I googled. So on the other side of
don't ever be ashamed to Google stuff if you want to get to the bottom of what you're thinking about a movie. A lot of times it's more bullshit than you think. So
so on the other side of the Green Man is something called the Sheila Nagig.
Okay.
So people are still confused about its origins. A lot of historians have different ideas of what it even means and where it came from. Mm-hmm. But all of them are basically just statues of this woman, like with her legs open giving birth.
Oh, okay.
So that also ties into the Green Man and what's going on at the end.
Yeah.
Is all of that is the Sheila...
kind of converging in on itself?
Yes, it's the Sheila Nagig.
Okay. And see, again, with having no research about paganism, the way I saw it was, she's in a church, we have the Green Man on one side, that's man is God. Yeah. And on the other side, we have women giving birth, women is our life. Yeah. It's kind of the way I interpreted it.
I feel like, it's one of those things they could both be right separately or to combine.
And that's what I think is so cool, because if that statue is in the middle of the woods, it could represent entirely that paganism, but because they chose to put it in a church and try to connect it, I think, to kind of what modern paganism ended up becoming. Mm-hmm. Which is, Catholicism and kind of what we realize today as Christianity. I think all of that is just very interesting convergences of whatever the hell he was trying to say with this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I guess, what'd you think of the ending?
Yeah, so I love the ending a lot. I think it's one of the best endings I've seen in a very long time.
I haven't been able to stop thinking about this movie literally since I saw it.
Whether you love it or you hate it, I think everyone's going to be thinking about...
You're going to have something to think about.
Something to think about. I think this movie is definitely going to leave you something to think about.
Yeah.
I think people who are on board with the movie probably will be polarized by the ending.
But yeah, even the movie's biggest fans might not like it after the ending.
Because it is, like, just what we've been saying this whole time, is just, it is so, like, separating of, like, either you like it or you hate it, and even if you do like it, you're still not quite sure what exactly it all means anyway.
Yeah, and so I think I think before we get into this, I think it was really cool the way that Alex Garland kind of chose to lead into that ending, because she's standing in the middle of the street, and then we pan up kind of to the cosmos,
Yeah.
in this impossible shot that doesn't exist on Earth right now because of pollution and all kinds of bullshit, where you see, the stars and the nebula and, our galaxy basically, and then we pan back down. So I was prepared to go into some kind of cosmic horror going out, which, not that it isn't. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you could definitely still count it, but I was expecting a much more, something that would connect the film to the universe even, from that. And I think the way he chose to do that, and the way to set that up, like, that might still be correct. You know what I mean? That might still be a correct way to interpret this. So I think it's just a masterful balance of horror and sci-fi throughout the whole thing. But Zach, so what was your opinion, and what's your interpretation?
So just my interpretation of the ending is, I guess, a little less fantastical. It's just, I kind of see it as, I guess, kind of what I alluded to previously. She just has, for me, I feel like that the characters of all the different men are just people that, because she's in a transitional period and working through her own shit, that they represent other men that she's had in her life that have also treated her bad.
Definitely.
And so these could all be people that have led up to her relationship previously before her husband. And so at the end of it all is just, at the end of the day, it's just her.
It's a big transition.
It's a big transition. It's just her and her husband, and she's just continuing to work through it. So that's just kind of what I see it as. Is
who
just
almost is coming back to
haunt her in a way at the end,
yeah.
and that she just kind of just deals.
Definitely, which is probably very correct, because I'm sure any interpretation anyone has of this film is correct. The way that I saw it at the end, in the theater, the way that I was kind of working through all these births at the end, was that the Green Man comes out and he could, again, have this, allegorical relationship with God, and he gives birth to man through his man vagina, and from there, he gives birth to man, who is this screaming, kicking child that we know is a brat that we already don't like in the film, because we have this established relationship with our main character, who then gives birth to the Vicar, who could represent religion, where, man was kicking and screaming at birth, and then when they found religion, they kind of started to calm themselves and create a power structure, and then off of the back of religion came the police force, which just, again, furthers the structured nature of our society and kind of how we treat each other, and, it could even be like some kind of commentary on, modern police force in the United States or the world, and kind of what that represents for order and chaos and kind of what we go through in our everyday lives. And then from there, from order and chaos, birthed the modern day man, or misogynist, I guess would be the more correct version, which is her husband, and how her husband treated him, or treated her, how her husband treated her. And, that last line where he's like, I just want you to love me, or something like that, I think kind of further develops that point of, like, this is what Alex Garland, or at least, like, his interpretation of what, like, the modern misogynist or man is just this broken being that, like, can't see beyond his own self, his own world, kind of thing.
And the way he says that line too, and the way she just reacts to it, it's not like out of love. It's just a very haunting.
Yeah, it's you can feel, like, the neediness and the clinginess in what he says. And it's even though it doesn't sound like it, even the way he says it it feels like abuse almost to her character, because he's putting all of this weight on her, after he's gone through all this bullshit. And so I think, for me personally, I think that's where the movie should have ended. I do appreciate that we brought her friend in, and we find out that they brought her friend in at the end, and we find out that not only did all of it happen, but her friend was real the whole time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So she wasn't just a fake entity that she was communicating with. We find out her friend is real, and she's pregnant. So, again, that just further alongs the plot line of maybe what men and women represent in our society, or maybe what Alex Garland wants to push forward the message of, like, life and birth giving, and that belongs to, the better half.
Could also just mean all men are the same.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
It could be, at the end of the day,
just be all men are bastards.
So, who's to say?
But No, I think, again, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it
Yeah.
since. I think the way it was put together was incredible. I think the cinematography was insane.
Yeah, it
and
was very beautiful.
again, the lenses and gear he chose to use on this film, it just brings you to another world. It feels like, again, you're falling down the rabbit hole with this character, and
in a short 100 minutes too.
Yeah, it wasn't very long at all. You know, I was expecting it's not a 2-hour sci-fi epic,
Yeah,
or anything like that. So, yeah, very satisfied with the movie. If you guys like this kind of stuff and you like, cosmic horror or anything, I'm sorry if you sat through this review if you haven't seen it already, but go ahead and go give it a watch. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Like, subscribe, share this stuff. Let us know if you want us to do any more reviews of any other films. We're going to be trying to do some of these a little bit more frequently than we have been doing. We're going to try and stay away from the big name releases and maybe focus on more of the niche or the independent structure, because that's the stuff we like. So
Yeah.
So we're working on a bunch of stuff, and we'll kind of let you know what's coming up when it's ready.
See ya.